Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's Next Generation Alliance webinar on the topic of It Takes a Team to Launch a Dream. I'm David Jones, and our presenters today are two very good friends of NGA, Scott Dawson and Scott Lenning from the Scott Dawson Evangelistic Association. Scott Dawson was one of the first members of the Next Generation Alliance. He serves on the NGA cabinet, giving leadership to the direction of NGA. He is a very gifted evangelist, passionate about seeing people come to Christ. Scott Lenning is the executive director of SDEA. He has directed many large evangelistic outreach events and campaigns with both Scott and with Dr. Billy Graham. Both Scotts love working with NGA and serving other evangelists, and so it's a real pleasure to have them with us today. If you have questions for our presenters, you can send those to us by just going to your computer screen, your control panel, and you should have a box on the right-hand side that says questions. You click that on and type your questions for Scott and Scott. If you don't have a screen, then you can email your questions to us by going to nga@palau.org, nga@palau.org. So please welcome two very good friends of NGA from good old Birmingham, Alabama, Scott Dawson and Scott Lenning.
Thank you so much, David. I guess we could start off by saying roll tide, but I don't want to lose anyone that's online right now. Thank you for this opportunity to address this. Hopefully it will be helpful. I've kind of looked at what has happened to SDEA over the years of starting out. It takes a team to launch a dream. That didn't start with SDEA. That literally started with NASA. And it goes back to when John F. Kennedy, May 25th, 1961, he made that infamous statement. He said, quote, "First, I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal, before this decade is out, of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth," end quote. When that quote was given, when that speech was given, NASA themselves would say they knew less than 20% of what was needed to perform such an incredible task. And throughout the decade of the 60s, a team assembled together. They had their instructions, they had the sum of all parts, and in 1969, America did the impossible. We landed a man on the moon, and of course, that's when we heard Neil Armstrong's one small step, and we achieved it. So when you look at that, it does take a team to launch a dream. And so as we begin this morning, I wanted to make sure that we started out with why have a team? There is scriptural basis. Just before we got started, Jeff was reminding us that Jesus had a team, and that's his 12 disciples. And now we're part of his team, the body of Christ. We all work together as a body. But in Ecclesiastes chapter 4, written by King Solomon, he's the wisest man to have ever lived. When he was young, God asked him to ask for anything. And instead of asking for an Xbox, instead of asking for a big student conference, he asked for wisdom. And when God heard that, he gave him not only wisdom, he gave him everything else he had desired. So as Solomon is wise, in Ecclesiastes chapter 4, it starts out by, it's such a desolate place. Solomon even reminds them that those who are dead have got it better than they do. And then he said the best are the ones who have never been born. So it was a very tough time. Kind of reminds me of where evangelism is today. It's a very tough time. I mean, it's a barren land in some places where we live. And then he comes around, and in verse 9, here's what he says. He says, "Two are better than one, because they have a good reward for their labor." Verse 10, "For if they fall, one will lift up his companion, but woe to him who is alone when he falls, for he has no one to help him up." Let me go ahead and read verse 11 and 12 for you real quick. It says, "Again, if two lie down together, they will keep warm, but how can one be warm alone? Though one may be overpowered by another, two can withstand him." And then that famous phrase, "a threefold cord is not easily broken." So why have a team? I'm going to give you 4 quick reasons why I think scripturally and just common sense, you need to have a team. Number 1, we help each other succeed. We basically, there's someone to talk to. There's someone to celebrate. I remember, I'm speaking to some of you who, you're a one-man team. Been there, done that. I remember riding into town late at night and seeing God move and not have anyone to celebrate with. You know, to not have someone to bounce ideas off of. We need each other, and as you build a team, you rally together a group of people who are like-minded and prayerfully kindred spirit, and you help each other get down the road, and you're able to rejoice with one another. Now that's verse 9, but let me give you the second one. The second reason is we pick each other up when we fall. If you're not careful, you're always going to make mistakes. If you never make mistakes, you're really not doing anything. We always make mistakes, and when you try that vision and thought it was, I remember one event we did, and we thought we were going to have thousands, and we had about 80 people there.
I remember that one too.
Yeah, you remember that. It was incredible to have someone there to bear the burdens, and you don't have that crab basket mentality, because if you're by yourself, the crab basket mentality is, you ask anyone who catches crabs, they want to catch 2 crabs, because if you only catch 1 crab, the crab's going to get out of the basket. But if you catch 2 crabs, as soon as one tries to get out, the other crab will grab the other to drag him back down. Now, here's the deal. If you want to stay in the crab basket mentality and be by yourself, that's fine. But understand, when you get out of that crab basket mentality, the ultimate purpose of that crab basket is death. Outside the crab basket is life. So when you have someone that's working with you and you're on the same team, you're able to get out of that crab basket mentality and go beyond where you ever thought you could. So you help each other succeed. You pick each other up when you fall. But let me give you the third thing. You basically fuel each other's passions. When Solomon says, how can one lie down and get warm, but if 2 lie together, and when he's saying that, there's different connotations there. Some people believe it's the husband and wife, there's passion. Or if you're in the desert and you're laying down in those cold nights, if you cuddle together, you have body heat. But in either case, here's what I want you to see. It's warmth, it's heat, it's passion. And so when you develop a team, if you allow others to walk around you, there's an opportunity for passion to go from not only adding to your team, but you're multiplying to your team and making it even better than what you thought it could. And the fourth one, real quick, is when we come together, verse 12, God shows up. A threefold cord is uneasily broken. If you get a team together and you wrap it up in the power of the Holy Spirit, man, all of a sudden you're working in your own strength. Scott's strengths are not mine. My strengths are not his. But when we come together, we've got a complete picture where God just is able to get the fuel to get that rocket to get us back on the moon, spiritually speaking, so we can see a difference in evangelism. So that's the reason you have a team. Now, let's talk about it takes a team to launch a dream. What are the dream killers? And we all have a dream. Every evangelist that's on this webinar right now, we all have a dream. Anyone who's ever had a hot shower's had a thought, but it's those of us who get out of the shower, dry ourselves off, write it down, and live for it. What the prophet Habakkuk, let me give you this verse. It says, he says, then the Lord answered me and said, write the vision and make it plain on tablets, that he may run who reads it. Let me give you a couple of things here. Write the vision. It's not enough just to have it in your head. You got to write the vision, and then you have to make it plain. You have to make it where it's understandable so that he may run who reads it. Those on your team can actually get down the field. So to some of you who've got a team, I'm going to talk to you about dream killers and team killers. For some who are listening on this webinar and you're a one-man ministry, one-person ministry, go ahead now and use this opportunity to take Habakkuk 2:2 personal. Write the vision that God's given it to you. Take the time to make sure it's disciplined enough where people can understand it, so when God does bring you your team, they can all get down the road very quickly. So what are some of the dream killers? Some of those are just basic, but I think we need to discuss them. Number one is compromise. Sin will literally destroy the dream. You can have an incredible dream, an incredible vision of what you want to see happen, but sin will destroy you. 1 John chapter 2, if you love the world, the Father's love is not in you, because all that is in the world, three things: the lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life. It's not of the Father, but of the world. So we've got to understand there is that petition to stay in, to not get casual in the holiness of God. And we understand we're not dealing with perfection here. There's not one perfect person on this webinar, on this creation. But here is the deal. When Christ came into our lives, he put us on the road to perfection. Although God the Father sees us perfect right now, as I'm being molded into the image of Christ in my daily life, every day I should be more like Jesus. I should be more like Jesus today than I was last week. And next month, if you see me, hopefully I'm more like him then. And if you allow that casual sin to start to develop in your life, and you start compromising, let me give you the statement. Today's compromise will bring tomorrow's calamity. Today's compromise will be tomorrow's calamity for your ministry. So compromise, let me give you the second one. Corner cutting. Okay, this is one of those where if you're not careful, you know the phrase. It says the longest distance between 2 points is a shortcut. There are two questions that I have over the years have determined that come together. They're usually 5 years apart. The first question is when a pastor, a donor starts asking, why do you do that? Why did they do that? The second question 5 years later is, whatever happened to them? So you can have an incredible dream, an incredible vision, but if you do not lay down the foundation and take it the long-term approach, and you start cutting corners, if you start using manipulative tactics, if you start over-promoting and under-delivering, any of these cutting the corners, it's going to kill your dream. Third thing, let me give you this one. It's also confusion. It's basically when you don't know your own dream. When you've not taken Habakkuk 2:2 personally, or you've written it down, if you're not following after God's call on your life, other people will get you to follow after their call on their life. I had to learn this, man. I just wanted a full schedule, man. I would say yes to a senior adult lock-in, which aren't bad.
We had to balance quantity and quality.
That's exactly right. The whole goal is not to have a full schedule, it's to have an effective schedule.
Correct. Yeah.
And if you're confused, if you don't know why God has placed you in this position of leadership, of being the evangelist, to being the person who has the dream, you're going to start doing everything everyone else wants you to do, and you're going to be away from where God really wants you to be. So be careful of not knowing really where you are. Now let me give you the fourth one. You have to build a team. Now, when I say this, some of you right now, your number one question that's probably coming in is, how do I afford it? How in the world can this ministry afford to hire someone to come along beside me? I almost use the reverse. How can you afford not to hire someone? How, if God's given you this vision, if you were sitting there in front of your computer right now and you believe that God gave you this vision, listen to me right now. If God's given you this vision, will God not provide what he births? Will he not provide what he has just given into your heart? It's not, can I hire? It's, can I hire the right person? And I think that's the more important question. You have to hire the person that wants to be part of a team, that has already gone through the first three. They've not compromised. There's not known sin in their life. They're not known for cutting the corners, okay? And they're not confused. They don't know why they're here. Scott he knows why God placed him on this planet. So how can you afford not to hire the people that can take you down the road? I've got a phrase in here. It says you must give up to go up. You're going to have to right now, as a leader, sacrifice and learn to sacrifice to bring on other people. And it's going to be a challenge, man. There's some challenging days. And sometimes you just want to crawl under your desk and cry like a baby. That's fine. We all do that. But at the end of the day, whatever God births, God's going to provide for it, and he can be faithful to it. So I want to give you the fifth one, and that's what I want to turn over to Scott Lenning.
Yeah, and that's really with staff responsibility. I kind of like, you've got to grow up in order, you give up in order to grow up sometimes with what it is that a dream has. John Kortz, who helped us early on when I came in and worked with you, it was interesting. He identified you as both our strength and possibly our weakness. If you try to do everything on your own, as good as you were, sometimes then we would stop short. So that was why we created a staff that would come around you and work with you to help carry out some of the visions and the dreams, and that's the responsibility of the staff. That's also the responsibility of the visionary and the leader and the dreamer to give up some of that hand-holding in order to let the staff come around and help you begin to carry that out. A lot of times in introducing ourselves, I kind of share that Scott is inspiration and we are perspiration, because there has to be that complement, that working together of both the inspiration of what we want to do, but also the perspiration of how are we going to come around and do that. And so that takes the responsibilities, I think, of both the leader and the staff to know what it is that they have to do. Visionaries have a lot of ideas. I think, has vision, has a lot of, and Scott, a lot of your ideas are good. Some of them may not be so good.
Not.
Sorry about that. I hate. No, they're not horrible. They're not horrible. But here's the deal: is that we can allow a process to come along and determine, is that idea, is that dream really good for us as a team? And I think that's what you have to do, is the people that are around you, the part of the team, bring a process in to kind of help vet the idea, to help us see what's going on. First of all, what you have to do is determine, is that idea compatible with the mission statement of your organization? Now for us, the Scott Dawson Evangelistic Association exists to support the divine calling of Scott Dawson to proclaim the good news of Jesus Christ. So is that idea, does it fit within that calling? There are a lot of great ideas, but it may not fit that calling. So we say, you know what? That may not be what we need to do. But hopefully it is something that fits the mission of our organization, fits the mission of your organization, and you begin to move that into a process. Now here's what, as a staff person, you don't want to be a yes man or a yes woman. And as I think a leader, you don't want to just have yes people around you, but we do want to be can-do people. I mean, sometimes you hear an idea and you go, and you don't want to be that person, that staff person that's just constantly pouring water on an idea, because some of those ideas can be good. Even if you go, I mean, I'll be honest, there have been some ideas that I just kind of put my head down and go, oh no, but then we see great results, and I have said, Lord, forgive me for my attitude on that, because the process began to walk that idea into a reality. And so you have to create your own process, and that's with your team. You begin to look at things like dates. Simple dates can kill an idea if it doesn't work. Locations of where you're wanting to go, what you're wanting to do. Is there support? Financial, yes. Is there budget support? But are there people there that will help you see this become a reality? These are steps that you go through that help to see that dream begin to grow. Is it something that will, grow into a reality or not, and maybe fall short? But that's what the staff does. Comes around the dream, comes around the leader to say, let's work together to see if this will happen. Let's put it in the process. Let's vet it. Some things work, some things don't. But that's what I think the staff comes along to do, to help carry out that dream and that vision.
Yep, cool. Well, we've heard about the dream killers. Now let me give you the team killers. For those of us who are who've got teams, or you're in the process of building a team, there again, this is a lot of introspection of my own life and the failures that as a leader I've done in the past. I can probably teach on how not to build a team as well as how to build a team. And let me give you the first one. If there's a lack of delegation. If you try to do everything yourself, almost to have a hoarder's mentality that it's all mine. Remember, you have to give up to go up. If you don't let things go, the frustration of the team around you is going to go, well, there's nothing for me to do. Why am I here? And don't expect to have 100% success rate. It's amazing how we expect perfection from others, but demand grace for ourselves. So I would say if someone can do it as 75% as well as you, let them do that, especially if it's outside your call. You have to know your role. Remember, there's no confusion. I know I am to proclaim the gospel, I'm to build the board, I'm to share the vision, and I'm to communicate with our financial partners. I know where my role is, and other things may come my way, but if I can't delegate to other people who are better than it than I am, it's going to kill the team. Second thing, not only the lack of delegation, but the lack of communication. This is those of us who are, man, this is for those evangelists that are listening. Two things are going to happen. One, you're either not going to talk. You're going to keep it to yourself because you've learned to be guarded. You don't want anyone to get into the inner circle. And sometimes if you're not careful, you won't tell anyone what God's called you to do. Or my danger is the second aspect is you think out loud. And
we start taking notes when you start thinking out loud.
Absolutely. Here's the deal. When you're thinking out loud, you're just having a great idea. You think your team is taking it as law. They're writing it down.
We're putting it in the process.
And every day I'd come in with a different idea, and I'd be thinking out loud. So can I just give you some advice here? If you're not talking, have regular meetings. We have a staff meeting every week where things can be brought up, things cannot. But other time, when you're thinking out loud, just give yourself a disclaimer. Hey, I'm just thinking about this. I don't want anyone to go move to Charleston. Okay, this is just an idea I've got. Which, by the way, I got a great idea.
Oh, good! I can't wait to hear.
Anyway. So the two aspects of that is when you don't talk or when you think out loud. Let me give you the third thing. That is the lack of teamwork. And on that is if you're not operating as just like the body of Christ, which Paul gives us that illustration. If the hand wants to be the eye or the foot wants to be the arm, everyone has to work in their own set of gifting. So if you have the ownership mentality that no one can touch this, like MC Hammer, you can't touch this. It's going to kill your team, and you have to be careful as the leader to allow other people to have opportunity to take ownership in the ministry. It becomes more than just your own. I was notorious early on. In fact, John Quartz was the one that kind of pointed it out. I would scream fire because I would see something coming, and instead of it being a literal fire, someone just needed to adjust the thermostat 2 degrees, and everything would have been fine. So you have to give up to go up. If you have that ownership mentality that no one can, this is all yours, your team will have, they will come in the front door and they will go out the back door as quickly as possible. So the ownership mentality, and the second one is the loanship mentality. That no one knows, basically for those of us who are evangelists, we're used to being loners. We're like an eagle. We're not in a flock. We're by ourselves because, to walk into a room and you've got 30, 45 minutes, some of us 15 minutes to share the gospel. As someone has walked in for 40 years walking this way, and we believe God has the ability to change a life right there, instantaneous. If you're not careful, you'll get a loanship mentality, and you will not open yourself up to be part of a team. And if you don't, it'll kill your team. Now, the third thing I'm going to turn over to Scott. I think he's got a great idea on this.
Yeah, and that is the continuation of partnership. Some of what we've been talking about, the partnership between the leader, the visionary, and then the staff, but partnership is multifaceted, and you've heard this, but partnership really is power, and it's working together is so much better, so much stronger, so much more effective than when you do try to go it alone, and that's what a staff can do. But even on a staff, and Scott, you talked about yourself maybe trying to do it all on your own. If you're not careful, a staff person can also try to do that, being a super person, Superman. And you want to get the most out of each individual and each team, but what you want to do is realize that a one-person team acts as has a ceiling. You know, a Superman has a ceiling, but really when you come together as a team and a group of people, you working together, that ceiling then raises. Absolutely. And we're able to do so much more. And let me just say that partnership that we're talking about is really what I'm thinking about anyway, is multifaceted. First, it starts with our team of SDEA, or the Scott Dawson Evangelistic Association. We have 13 members of our team. Each one of us, we come together, and as Scott said, we meet on Mondays, we talk, we kind of look at the things that are going to take place collectively. But every one of our team members has their own specific responsibilities and assignments, and that is their focus really pretty much throughout the entire year. But we have a lot of different type of events, a lot of different vehicles for sharing the gospel. So what happens is when somebody is their focus is the tour or conference or a summit, I mean, that's what they're focusing on. But when one of those events comes around, everybody puts their focus down, and we begin to rally around that person or that department that is about to have their event, and we work together then as a team. That's the partnership. We have our focus, and yet we can put that down in order to help the rest that are on our team. And that's the personal responsibility, and yet working together as a team. Then you build around that. You build around, particularly if you're not in your own hometown and you're doing an event with a community, you work with the local leaders, and you have to bring them in. Hopefully they've invited you to come and be a part of an event or to lead an event in their community. And the teamwork that you have with the local, between your team, your immediate team, and then the local volunteers and leaders, are that you know the steps that you have to go through in order to prepare for an event to be as effective as possible. That local community may not know those steps, but what they do know is they know relationships and they have resources. You don't have that. You don't have the relationships that they have. You don't have the resources they have, but you know the steps. That is where it takes both your team and the local team working together as one, putting together both the strategic steps that are necessary along with the relationships and resources. But then I like a third partnership, and we talk about that a lot. And Dave with the NGA and the Next Generation Alliance, and that's working together, maybe collaboratively among our organizations. And I think that there are some times that when we do come together, we realize that the synergy, I know that's an overused word, but we really can accomplish more together than we can individually. So yes, we have that individual assignment, just like our team does, as a ministry that God's called us to, but sometimes we can put that aside and come together to work in partnership with other organizations, and then we realize we really can even have more impact. So partnership is extremely important to that team being effective and working well.
Absolutely. You have ownership, you have the loanship, you have partnership. Let me give you the final one, and that's just the cloneship. Now, that's a made-up word that I just came up with.
I like it, though. I want to hear what you have to say about it.
Trump can do it, I can do it too. Okay, here we go. Here's what I would say about cloneship, about evangelists, and if you're an evangelist, you know this. We like to hang out with people just like us. And if you hire people just like you, there was a phrase that used to go around that if I spent 30 minutes with someone, I'd either hire them or kill them. Because if they were like me, I'd want them to be on our team. And if I didn't like them, man, I just want them out of my sight. And I've realized that as you're building a team, not everyone's going to have the same personality. Not everyone's going to have the same. We're all quirky. Lenny, he's got quirkiness. I got quirkiness. Laura's got quirkiness. We've all got quirkiness. But it's when we come together in our diversity, wrapped around being changed by the power of the Holy Spirit through a relationship with a living God through His Son, Jesus Christ, we're able to all go further down the road. And you're gonna lose some people. You're gonna go through this process, and you're gonna have most of us are gonna hire younger guys as we begin, and you're gonna build into their lives. You're gonna give them opportunities they've never had, experiences they would have never dreamed of. And then they're going to leave. They're going to walk out the door. I had one time when we had close to a third of our entire team go to different places. They had great opportunities.
You take that personal, don't you?
I did. I do.
Yeah,
I do.
Yeah.
Evangelists, you know this. We all take it personal. All evangelists take everything personal, okay? Yeah. You put it on your shoulders. And then I had a friend of mine give me this quote. He said, the only thing worse than training someone and losing them is not training them and keeping them. Now, I want you to listen to that because it set me free, and it made me realize I'm going to be training for the rest of my life. Everything about us is to train those who are around us. So if you're not careful, you're going to get into some of these dream killers, team killers, and never really be able to launch the dream God's given you. So now we're going to go to team strategies, okay? This is what's going to kind of bring the team together and to kind of go to the next level. And I would say you already have a team. God's already given you a team. One, man, you're on God's team. So before you can lead, you have to follow, and he's speaking to your heart. He is the one that's giving you opportunities. Some of you are married, so your spouse is on your team, and you've got to build that team first and foremost. Stay close to them. And I would just say practically, some of you have got a board. Hopefully you all have a board. And your board is going to be one of the biggest influences for those of us who are maybe not as large as some of the national ministries we all hear about. How can your board help you? You have to pick the right board. I always look for 4 things. You have to have the walk with Christ. So if you're talking to people about serving on your board to launch this team dream, you have to have those who know Christ, not perfection, but on the road to perfection. And then I look for 3 things. Wisdom, because they help you shape your vision, okay? Because like Scott's saying, with your developing this team, they're going to help you. But for those of us who are maybe just starting to develop your team, get board members who have got wisdom, who can just kind of not be no men, or yes men, but just why. They ask the question why. Then you look for wealth. And a lot of people don't like to discuss this. But I'm going to tell you, if all you have are wealthy people on your board, you'll have a lot of money, but you won't do anything. You need the people with wealth, but if that's the only thing you're driving after, it's not going to get you to where God wants you to be, okay? And then the third W is work, and I think of that as network. There are some people who come on your board. They may not have a lot of wealth. They're not the wisest person in the room, but they love Jesus, and they've created this network that on their contact list, they're 3 people from anyone you want to be to share the gospel. So I would say is these team strategies are existing already in your life. Build your marriage, build your relationship with Christ, and then build your board. And as you are given the opportunity to go out and hire someone, you've already got resources. You can already sit down and share the vision that God's given you to that individual. And you never know, they may say, man, this is the one that I want to write the check for, or I'll sell some stock and make sure that you can get this person on your team. So I'm going to give you some homework. I'm going to give you some 2 books that I would say you have to read. Team strategies, they're as prevalent as just a Google search. You can get thousands of responses. 2 of them that we all know is Good to Great by Jim Collins. It is the standard that we're going to talk about in just a few moments. And then the second one you may not be familiar with. It's an older book. It's The Pursuit of Wow. Because what we want to do is we want to be not only above reproach in everything we do, we want to be in the pursuit of excellence. Everything in this teamwork coming together. And so great resources for you to walk through with your team. But let's just kind of give you some team strategies of what it says. Basically, it says get the right people on the bus. And number 2, get the right people in the right seat. And with that, I'd let Scott kind of share.
Yeah, and we start out talking about NASA and that whole rocket, putting somebody on there. This is not rocket science. You've read this, you know this isn't complicated, but sometimes it's good to be reminded of some of these things that really can help you as you do build your team. And that, first of all, is to get the right people on the bus. And a few things I think you need to do. Number 1 is you have to make sure that the people you're bringing onto the bus do have the same vision. They can buy into it. They understand it. They believe in the mission that you have, that God has given you in order to build around them, because they have to believe in the same mission. Number 2, you need to have people who are team players. As Scott even talked about in being an evangelist, sometimes you're alone in what you do, but as a part of a team you can't be. And that doesn't mean you don't have people on your team that are more reserved or more introspective, but they have to be able to work together as a team in order to function function well. So you have to believe in the mission. You have to be a team member. Sometimes circumstances delegate that right person on the team. Sometimes it's timing. Somebody you may want, but it's not the right time, and it may take a time or two for that to work out.
I came after you 4 times.
I wasn't going to talk about that.
No, you turned me down 4 times.
Well, it wasn't the right time.
It wasn't the right time.
Wasn't the right time.
Okay.
And for now 10+ years,
Praise the Lord.
it has been. So God had that right timing, and it sometimes it might be budget. By the way, I want to talk to you about my budget. No, I'm just teasing. I'm just teasing on that.
Next webinar.
It can be a budget issue. Scott referred to that. You can't let that dictate everything, but sometimes you do have to wait on that. Maybe schedule is a part of what's going on. The other thing is sometimes theology. Make sure the person that you're wanting to put on your team has the same theology as you do, because if you have a clash or a compromise of theologies, that can really be damaging to having the right people on the bus. And then experience. You need to bring people on the bus who do have experience in carrying out what it is that you're wanting to do with your team and for the responsibilities they have. You have to make sure that those experiences complement each other and don't compete with each other as a part of the team getting that work done. So that's getting the right people on the bus, on your team to make this happen. But then sometimes you have to adjust them and get them in the right seat. And I think sometimes that's because there is a person or some people that you know that you feel this person is so strong, believes in what we do, and is so right. You bring them in, even though you're still tweaking exactly what their responsibilities. Now, I'm not saying you bring in the social media guy to do your books, but I do think that you can, to get the right person, sometimes you do have to then make some adjustments with them. You get to know them. You find out what are their passions, what are their skills, what are their gifts. And sometimes, honestly, that's through some time and some trial and error and letting them have some responsibilities and seeing how effective they are in accomplishing what it is that they need to do, and then make some adjustments in order to keep that right. And let me say, if you're a leader in an organization, you're putting that team together, this is where I do feel that having a good, clear job description for that staff member is so important. A good job description clarifies what they do and really the relationships with whom they do it. We have a great template. If anybody wants it, you could contact us and we could give you some templates of what our job descriptions look like, because we do feel like job description is important for getting the right person into the right seat. And then a simple organization chart. And that's, let me say, job description and organization charts are living documents. It's not like, got that done and we don't. You continue to look at that and you continue to manipulate and massage that organizational chart to get those people put into the right position. But in seeing that on a piece of paper, what it does is it helps your team understand where they fit into both the team and the division and the vision that is set before them. So get the right people on your bus as a part of your team, and then work with them to make sure you've got them doing the right thing with the skills and gifts that God's given them.
And here's the deal. Don't ever be afraid of going out and getting resources that someone else has already developed.
Absolutely.
You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Just improve the tread for your vehicle.
That's called research.
That's called I mean, we were pest to David and Kevin and everyone at Palau's Association because they'd already been there.
Yeah.
And there is that power of teamwork. You're already on a team because you're part of NGA. We all work together.
Absolutely.
So we're here to help you guys. I would say in brief synopsis, let's just do one final thing, and that would be keep training. Okay, just keep training. Several aspects here of NGA conference. I know we're going to have one coming up. That we used to bring different people to the conference. Maybe that's a good place if you've got someone you're talking to about being part of your team. Expose them to all these other evangelists, and you're special. You're more special than any of the rest of us. So if that person's going to be hanging out with you for 2 days and go, man, you're much better than these guys. It'll be a great place to train your team and include your team. The podcast. The books, do a retreat for your team once you get them together. But we could talk about all being on the same team, but in what Scripture calls us, is we're part of an army.
Mm.
And an army, we celebrate the victories, we mourn the losses, but we're also in it when the wounds come.
Mm.
And I would say when you have a team and there are wounds, and as an evangelist, you know you can become wounded. It creates that bond that you go, man, I'm glad that I've got this, that I'm not by myself. It's going to be a scary moment for you when you start to develop your team. I've been there, and I remember sacrificing a salary. I remember having to go through dismissing some team members. That's never fun. But if you will walk through this prayerfully, with wisdom, getting that of your board and creating this, if God's given you a dream that you're convinced of, He will provide for you. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to David. Thanks so much for this time. We're going to open it up for questions and answers now.
Scott and Scott, thank you so much. Very much appreciated. We got a number of questions here for you guys. The first one is, you mentioned the bigger question is hiring the right people, getting the right people on the bus. What have you found to be effective in finding and retaining the right gifted people for your ministry? Finding the right people to serve with my team has been very, very challenging.
Well, it's kind of like doing a mentor. You know, if you ever go out and try to find a mentor, it'll blow up in your face. God just kind of puts them in your path. You know, you're just talking in a conversation. I'm not saying you meet them in Walmart, you know, at midnight. I'm saying it could be at an NGA conference, talking, and all of a sudden someone mentions, hey, I've got this friend. I know how the one together with Scott was, we had a mutual friend. And even though I'd asked him 4 times and he said no, or 3 times, the guy said, I think it may be in God's timing now. And it was a friend who brought us together. That's how you get a team. I mean, you can talk to them.
Yeah, and one thing I do is in an event, in a situation that may not be mine, I'll be honest, I watch people. I watch them work. And it's not that I want to steal them away, but I do watch people, and I look for, sometimes I just see a person, I go, oh, that person would work well on our team. We have that need. And you have to be careful and appropriate about how you would deal with that conversation. But I think you can watch people, you can observe. God might be working in their life. There might be some unrest in their spirit. They may be looking for an opportunity. And so, you know, look at the people that you appreciate. And that might be the way to bring somebody into your team.
Absolutely. Examine, you know, there's not sin in their life. They're not compromised. They know where they stand. And if you're not careful being around, it's a small world evangelists live in. And we're all going to be thinking, how can I find the next Scott Lenning? How can I find the next Kevin Palau? How can I find the next John Ogle? Don't become involved in tunnel vision. Find the person that shares a calling upon their life, and how you retain them. Wow, that's something I think that's evolving, because I think it's in the different seasons of life. Some it's financial, you know, taking care of their families. Some it's acknowledgement. To some it's just spreading their wings and giving them more responsibilities. And I think in times past, SDA got to the point where we had some really great leaders, and they were growing so fast. They grew beyond the responsibilities we could place upon them, and they were able to go out and soar, and now they're doing better than they've ever thought they could.
And you can't take that personal.
No, you
Seriously.
can't.
I mean, you know,
the only thing worse than training someone and losing them is not training them and keeping them. So, as you're talking about retention, you know, you just have to think about where they are in their seasons of life and adjust accordingly. It may be financially, it may be responsibilities. And however, it may be something going on in their life that you just have no clue what's happening, and you have to trust the Lord on that. The prodigal son, when he ran away, the father never ran after him. Now, that's because there was sin in his life. But here's what I've understood. If someone's going away from SDA and I try to run after them, it usually just makes them run faster. And as the prodigal father waited for the son to come back, man, sometimes it's just a season in their life. They're drifting. They'll come back, and then welcome them with open arms. So,
thanks. I'm looking at our question box here, and staff retention seems to be a popular theme of our questions. Number of participants in the call just commenting on the challenges of retaining quality people and how disruptive turnover, you train someone, you mentor them, and because of the issues of life, various reasons, 18 months later, they're gone. What have been some of the things that you all have done that have helped you keep those 13 teammates you have, put roots down in your organization?
I would say this: it's not always been like that. We have someone on our team. She keeps a log of names, and it is,
we call it the list.
The list, and it's people who used to come. They have worked at SDA. Our shortest employer lasted 1 day. They came 1 day.
What was her name?
I don't remember her name. No. Don't do that to me. She never came back. She left things on her desk. We don't know what happened. Anyway, so I'm going, we don't have the market on, how to retain. I think we are in a season where we are able to retain people right now. I don't see a large turnover on our staff. And you may be able to get some insight.
Well, let me just say, I think one important thing is that team member remains connected to the rest of the team. If all they do is they function only in their role, if it's a bookkeeper, if it's a receptionist, if it's social, whatever it is, if all they ever do is get to see what their role and their responsibilities are, they can become disconnected even within. They have to remain connected. That's the staff meetings. That's the the org chart. But I think it's also involving them in the ministry. If it becomes just a job, I think your turnover can be greater. If they feel a part of the ministry, I think they'll stay around longer. So you may have to spend a little bit more and let that person come to an event. They may not have worked on it. They may not have a hard, serious role. But I think for them to see it, to experience it, to enjoy why they answer 50 phone calls a day, to see the fruit of that ministry, I think is extremely important in that person really kind of sticking around and wanting to continue to be a part of just answering the phone, just doing the books, just doing their role.
It is an interesting question, guys. It says, I suspect many NGA members listening to your presentation today, they want to recruit a team, but just like you said, their response is, quote, I can't afford it. So what's your experience with having new hires raise their own support?
Well, when you do that, you're going to give them opportunity to spend more time trying to raise their own support than doing what you've hired them to do. That's just the other side to it. A lot of us look at some ministries that make people raise their own support. We don't do that at SDA. We put everyone on a salary, and I think it goes back to writing the vision, making it plain so people can run with it. I would challenge you to sit down with your board, sit down with people in your Sunday school class, and as the leader, you're not the owner, but as the leader, it's about sacrifice, man. It's about understanding you got to live with open palms, that you can't be concerned about if the paychecks aren't given, yours is the first one that's going to be scratched through. You have to have that mentality if you're going to get this dream launched. How can you afford not to do it if you believe God has given you and birthed in you this dream? If he's birthed it, he's going to provide for it. Now, you may have some conversations and you may have some stressful times, but in those seasons, it may be God just trying to mold you more into his image. It may be that he's trying to do something in the team member's life. But as these team members come around, if you hire the right people, they'll take you further than you ever wanted to go.
Another thing may be being creative as you grow into it. It may be somebody who becomes part-time, or maybe on a contract basis where they have responsibilities for particular events. And in doing that, one, they learn, and two, that helps maybe you be able to raise more money as a team. So you may have to think creatively rather than just take the, full hire straight off the top. You may have to create your way into it.
That's true.
Yeah.
Next question, what is your experience with interns And are internships a good means of recruiting long-term staff?
My personal assistant came to SDA as an intern, and she's by far the most incredible assistant anyone could ever desire to have. So, but when you do internships, we've done them well, we've done them bad. You know, it's a trial and error, just like hiring different people. We start them in the summertime. We pay them because if they're college kids, they have to get paid so they can go back to school. And we have them doing things that they don't want to do, and we have them doing things that they came to do. So it's a good mix. If all you're trying to hire is slave labor, get out of it right now. It's not going to work for you. But give them some responsibilities. Our interns, they go to our summer conferences. They help us plan Bible studies for our winter conferences. They get on the phone and talk to youth pastors and pray for them and pray with them before they get off any phone call. We train them, and it's not just a written down prayer. We want them to get communication and connection with these churches, because the person who answers your phone, if you still have phone calls in today's society, but your first person who has contact with an outside source, they need to be a good representation of who you are. So our interns, we train them. We have training sessions, and then we just set them free. And we've hired, Casey, Laura.
We've had other, Justin and Scotty and some of those guys that were, short 3-4 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, all right. Anyway, that's I would say interns, incredible way. Just send out an information to all the pastors.
I was going to say, just develop the intern, don't just use them.
Here's an interesting question. It says, I don't know how familiar you are with Patrick Lencioni's book, The 5 Dysfunctions of Team, but it just seems like a lot of ministries and churches are guilty of all dysfunctions, which are huge team killers. Why is there so much dysfunction in team building within ministry?
Oh, man. Well, Acts, the new church, even had problems. They had skirmishes in Acts, starting in Acts 6. So if you're trying to find the perfect organization, you're not going to find it. I think we're all works in progress, and the ones that try to advertise they're perfect, all you have to do is skim the surface and you realize they're not. It's not trying to find the perfect or even building the perfect organization. It's trying to build an effective team. And with that, you have to deal with issues like sin, which is the main one is pride. God hates that. We know, I think that's your answer, because we all say pride comes before fall. No, a haughty spirit comes before fall. Pride comes before destruction. And so a lot of teams are destroyed a lot earlier than when they close down the building because of pride. Then you've got selfishness. You've got the sense of entitlement. If you're not careful, you'll create, if you've ever gone to a long-standing event that happens year after year after year, you'll start seeing the volunteers that once did it because, they knew Jesus could change a life. They're now doing it so they can get their lanyard, their neck, and have supervisor written on it, or because they can get a certain colored T-shirt. And you're dealing with all of these wrapped around with what I believe the most important vocation God could ever give you, and that is to sharing the good news of Jesus Christ to this world.
Yeah, and this is not, I'm not saying this toward anyone, this is not an indictment or anything like that, but I think it does start at the top, and I think it filters down. And I think, if you have a healthy leader, spiritually, physically, emotionally, family-wise, that trickles down. And that's, I don't mean to put pressure on you, Scott.
No, it is.
But it's also on me as a part of a staff too to maintain, I think, a healthy personal life and not bringing dysfunction into our team. But that does start, I think, at the top. If we bring in dysfunction from our personal lives, from the leadership position, that too disrupts then down and creates, I think, dysfunction among the team itself. So I think you just have to be careful, you know, of that from the leadership position.
Yeah, Dave, one more thing on that. I would say evangelists sometimes are known to be addicted to adrenaline. We like to have that deadline hitting us, the invitations coming, everything wrapped around us. And if you're not careful, if you're addicted to adrenaline, you'll create adrenaline junkies all in your office. And if there's not a crisis going on, there's really no sense of being here. And you've got to make a decision. And God used Lenning coming into my life. No more crisis. We're not going to have any more crisis. Never let them see you run.
Yeah.
Never let them see you run, because when you run, everybody else is going, there must be a fire here. So no crisis in your life. You have to become healthy, spiritually, physically, relationally. And if you get those areas, you know, toned down in your life, the rest of your team seems to be able to operate smoothly.
That's great. Thanks. I think we have time for one more question, guys. This question is, you two, I think, travel a lot, and when you are home, you need downtime. So how do you stay connected and engaged with your team, especially the home office, who might not travel with you?
Wow, that's a good question. Because we were supposed to slow down a little bit, but I don't think we did. How do you stay connected with the home team?
Well, I think we travel, but we travel in seasons. It's you know, it's not like, I mean, at least for me personally, it's not like it's all the time. So I think the staff helps us get ready for a trip, and we take that trip, but we come home and honestly, we engage right back, you know, at the office. We come back into staff meetings, and honestly, the way we operate is, you know, well, I was gone for 6 days, I'm going to take 6 days off. I mean, you know, we come back and we might take a few hours to breathe, but we jump back into the office pretty quick. And I think that keeps us engaged, because when we're home, we do come to the office. We're not absentee leaders.
Yeah, I would probably say that question came from an evangelist, someone that's out there, that's the guy that's, you know, going in, doing the events, coming back in. Man, how do you stay connected? You know, I think first of all, you've got to stay connected with your Father. You've got to stay in relationship with Jesus, man. Just keep falling in love with Him. Communicate to your team. That can be through email, text, sending them, doing something a little extra so you're not just an ordinary person in their life. A text, remember their birthdays, remember their anniversaries. You know, I think there's one thing around here, we try to work hard, but we try to celebrate hard. If you got somebody that has an artist that they just absolutely adore, what's going to hurt getting them some tickets, allowing them to celebrate, even if you're on the road. Just don't think it's all about you. It takes a team to launch a dream. So I know God's given you the vision. You're the lead person. You're the personality, but it's not about us. It's about the person of Jesus Christ. So just be thankful you're on the team, and don't demand everyone to think of you as the supreme leader. So.
Guys, thank you so much. I mean, building a team is one of the critical concerns of most of our NGA members. We get asked a lot of questions about it. So this webinar has been just awesome. Thank you. And to those on today's webinar, just a reminder that we do 5 or 6 of these webinars annually. And if you have a topic that you'd like addressed in an NGA webinar, then please contact us. The webinar topics are based on what the members tell us they want discussed. So we listen to you, and you can visit the NGA website, www.nextgenerationalliance.org, to find out what our next webinar topics will be. The website also has a listing of upcoming events, resources, opportunities for collaboration and information on our members. Again, that's nextgenerationalliance.org. Finally, please make plans to join us for, as Scott mentioned, the NGA Connect Conference and Together event in Washington, D.C., July 14 to 16. Space is limited, so we really need you to register soon. I would say within the next few days. Register for the Connect Conference, July 14 to 16. It'll be a real blessing to both you and your staff. Spouses are also very much encouraged to join us in Washington, D.C. Registration for the Connect Conference, again, is at the NGA website. You can go online today and register. Well, Scott and Scott, again, a big thank you to our good friends down there in Alabama. Thank you, guys. And until next time, do the work of an evangelist. God bless all of you. Thanks again.
Thank you, guys.